Hello, I am over here again because it is just so hot in London right now. It's absolutely crazy. I can't remember the last time it was this hot. I don't think it's ever been this hot. It's just so bizarre, and British people just are not equipped in terms of air conditioning and stuff. We just don't have it, so it's difficult. So I'm sitting over here because it means my lights are further away and it's just a bit more comfortable, and it's less setup for me to do, which means less sweating. So it's not as nice to look at as my normal setup, but it's just gonna have to do. It's probably not gonna be the last video I film here, so sorry about that. You can see my books a little bit closer up, I guess, if there's any positive. This video is inspired by a video that I saw Daniel Green do a while ago, and he did actually encourage others to do these types of videos, but I will link his original video down below for you. So a lot of what I do on this channel is review books. I don't do a lot of individual book reviews, although my last video was an individual book review for Rebirth, part of the Divinity's Twilight series by Christopher Russell. If you haven't seen that yet, I will link it up here for you. But aside from that one, I don't do a lot of individual book reviews, but what I do include on my channel quite regularly is reading challenge videos where I'm reading books and reviewing them, wrap up videos where I'm reviewing books, etc, etc. So there's a lot of book reviewing going on here, and I think I make pretty clear in my reviews what it is that I'm focusing on, but I thought that it would be helpful to have all of that information in one place like Daniel did. So this is really just a chatty video for me to explain to you how I go about reviewing books. And first things first, you may have noticed I don't talk about star ratings on my channel. I do put them on Goodreads because it does help the authors, but in my videos I don't like to focus on those numbers because I don't think it's as good of a way of representing how I feel about a book as telling you how I feel about a book. And I feel like if I say, oh, this book was a 3-star, a lot of people will just automatically switch off and not be interested in that book because it wasn't 5-star or 4-star. And 3-star books can still be really, really great. So and that's why I don't talk about star ratings in my reviews on my channel. But if you're ever interested in what star ratings I've put on a book, I always have my Goodreads linked in the description, and you can feel free to go over there and have a look at the star ratings if you so wish. It's just not something I will be focusing on this channel. So then moving on to the things that are important to me in books, you will have heard me say before that I'm a very character-driven reader. So characters are extremely important to me, but I don't just mean that I like the characters. It's more a case of, or even can I relate to the characters? Those aren't necessarily what I mean by that. What I mean by that is, are the characters multifaceted? Are they deep? Are they believable as people? Are they flawed? Have they got stuff going on other than the central plot? Is there more to them than just a device to drive the plot forwards? That's what I mean by being a character-driven reader. If I can feel like the characters are important and are real people and that I care about them, that's what I mean by a character-driven reader. So there are some readers who are character-driven readers, some readers who are plot-driven readers, and some who are both. I do enjoy plot, but it definitely is not as important to me as the characters. If you've got amazing characters and an okay plot, I could still really love that book if the characters are amazing. So an example of this is We Are Okay by Nina LaCour, which I can't tell you what that story is about because the plot is just so secondary to that story. The story is about the characters and what they're going through and how they are internally coping with what minimal plot is being thrown at them. So that's really important to me, and alongside that, I need really, really strong relationships. They don't need to be romantic relationships necessarily, friendships, family relationships, anything like that, but believable, solid relationships that I can root for are really, really important to me. Characters that build each other up and support each other and are good to each other, and I'm not saying that they have to be good to each other all the time. Humans are fallible, they make mistakes a lot, and relationships get torn down for sometimes really insignificant and silly reasons from the outside perspective, but when you're in it, it's so emotional, and I like it when a book can show all of that and then allow those characters to come back together. Now, I will caveat that by saying that in romantic plot lines, I do find it frustrating when the whole conflict of the book is based on the breakdown of a relationship. That doesn't necessarily interest me too much. I like to see functional relationships where there might be a falling out, but things get sorted out and that's not the main conflict of the story. There's other stuff going on. So that's where I'm at with relationships and characters. In terms of plot, like I said, it's not the most important thing to me. There does need to be some. If there's a book that has absolutely no point to it whatsoever, then I struggle, although the exception to that is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, which arguably doesn't have a whole lot of point to it. If you've read that book, you know what I mean. There is a teeny tiny weeny bit of plot, but mostly that book is about world building, and I did enjoy that. But there will always be anomalies in here, and I think that one's definitely an anomaly, right time to read it and all that kind of thing. So ordinarily that kind of book would not be my thing because there's really not much point, and plot wise it doesn't need to be the main focus of the book, but there needs to be something driving us forwards. So, and there needs to be good characters at the centre, which I don't necessarily think The Starless Sea did either. So that one's a bit of an outlier, but otherwise I just want a little bit of plot to keep things ticking over, but then feel free to focus on your characters. Writing wise, I'm not too bothered about pretty or purple prose at all. In fact, I can find that incredibly frustrating. I don't mind purple prose so much necessarily if it's just a case of the language being used as being prettied up a lot. What I don't like is heavy literary dialogue or description that is all based in metaphor, where I have to try and spend time figuring out what it is that the author is trying to tell me. That I really, really hate. I read for enjoyment, and that's not something that I enjoy. Some people do, and that's amazing, but I just don't. It reminds me of being in school, and even when I was in school, I just didn't get all of that analysis of a sentence. It just doesn't work for me. So I don't mind pretty writing, but I do still want to be able to understand what the author is saying and what is going on without having to deconstruct each sentence and read between the lines and that kind of thing. That's not to say that I dislike things like foreshadowing, which I actually love foreshadowing. I love it when an author puts stuff in that I don't know is important until I find out later that it was important, and then I'm slapping myself in the face going, that was so obvious. I had all the answers and I just didn't put it together. That's fine. What I mean is where you've got a sentence and you think, right, I have no idea what the author means by this, and not because I don't understand what these words mean, but because the meaning behind this sentence is just not there for me. So I don't like that kind of writing. Aside from that, I'm pretty easy in terms of writing, be it adult, young adult, middle grade, a fusion of both, straightforward, easy to read, or slightly more complex and difficult writing. I don't mind, as long as it's clear what is being said. I don't necessarily mind like the reading level. I'm a mood reader, so I might one day be in the mood for something a little bit easier, or I might be in the mood for something a little bit more challenging, and that's the case for genre as well to a large extent. I'm very much a mood reader and will just pick up whatever it is that takes my fancy. Although, having said that, I have been enjoying doing TBRs a little bit more recently, but not keeping them too rigid. As you might have seen in my TBR videos, I'm giving myself lots of scope of things to choose from, and then just mood reading from within that smaller selection. I think because my physical TBR is so big, that just takes the pressure off and takes off that overwhelm a little bit, because I'm a mood reader, but I'm also really not a great person for decision making. So when you're looking at a TBR of like 80 books, it can be difficult to pick from within that. So I like to try and pick a selection each month for me to choose from, as and when I need a new book. I've just got a smaller selection to choose from rather than 80 books. One of the most important things for me in a book is pacing, which might sound a bit weird given that I'm a character-driven reader and I'm not that interested in plot. But I think actually, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense, because I am not particularly interested in plot, and so I just don't want the plot to drag on. I want things to just get on with it, just get moving. Slow plots drive me nuts because I don't care about the plot, I care about the characters, but the characters can only grow and develop and progress if the plot progresses. And so if we end up with our characters stuck in one situation for a very, very long time, I don't get as much, typically. This isn't a blanket always, but typically if a plot is really dragged out, you don't get as much development of the characters. Now, I'm not talking about length of books necessarily, because as you may know, Sanderson is one of my favourite authors, and basically all of his books are very long, and the Stormlight Archive is one of my favourites by him, and each of those books is over 1,000 pages long, and you might be given to think, well, that must have a slow plot. And it does, but it doesn't, because with epic fantasy, I think in general, you do have a overarching plot that is taking a long time to come to fruition, but you also have lots of little elements of the plot that are ticking over reasonably quickly in the meantime. So I can get behind that. But when you've just got one plot in one story that is just dragging on, that can really turn me off from a book. And that's why I tend to find that the quicker I read a book, the better, because otherwise I can just end up getting a bit frustrated with the story taking too long, because I am an impatient person overall. Fundamentally, that is a part of my personality, not one that I love, but it exists, it's a thing. I'm an impatient person, and so that does translate to what I like in books. I like the story to just keep moving, you know? So I think I didn't really do any prep for this video, but I think that that is everything I kind of wanted to talk about, but I would love to continue the conversation with you in the comments. So please do let me know if you have any questions about my reviewing style, or if you have any specific thoughts about your own reviewing style, then let me know. And that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks! Bye!